This conference will now be recorded.
Okay, so today and tomorrow is the demo for the Salesforce development. Okay, so if some of you are joining newly, you can attend today and tomorrow and see whether you are able to understand or not. So based on that, you can decide whether to continue or not. Okay, and also some of the people are thinking that this is the starting of the Salesforce training. Okay, the thing is, as part of the Salesforce, there are two modules. One is Salesforce administration, the other one is Salesforce development. This is already for this batch, Salesforce administration training is completed, and I'm starting the Salesforce development. Okay, so the reason why I am saying as a new batch, some people already know about Salesforce admin and they want to join from the development. That's why I'm saying that this is a new batch for the Salesforce development. If some of you, if you don't know anything about Salesforce, so this is not the correct batch for you. Okay. So if you want to start from the beginning, I'm starting a new batch from March 2nd. Okay. Morning 7 a.m. to 9 a.m. is the timing. Okay. So you need to join that batch and continue. Okay. So that's about those things. Okay. Clearly here, I assume that you know about the basics of the Salesforce administration. Okay, we are going to only discuss about the development from today. Okay, so before we start, okay, so people might be from the different backgrounds, civil, mechanical, MBA, maybe non-technical education background, people working in some other domain, maybe non-IT jobs, or maybe even though they are working in IT, maybe you might be in QA side or some other side. Okay. Since I need to consider everyone, I'm going to start from very, very basics. These first 2 days, whatever I'm going to explain, I'm going to explain the very, very basics of so how we need to understand the development. Okay. Slowly, day by day, the complexity will increase. And for sure, for an experienced person, 4 to 5 years, how much knowledge we should have, all those things we are going to discuss. Okay, so now, so to before start, people say when we discussed about Salesforce, okay, Salesforce offers two types of services: software as a service and the platform as a service. This development fall under platform as a service, right? That development, whatever we are going to discuss, is fall under platform as a service. So whatever the platform Salesforce offering to do the development, to customize whatever we want. So that platform, Salesforce, they call that one as force.com platform, right? Or nowadays, they are directly calling us salesforce.com platform. Okay, either force.com or salesforce.com platform. So on top of that, whatever the development we do, all those things will execute. Okay, so for you, so most of us, we know, if you want to, let's say, some other technology, Java, .NET, okay, let's say if you want to write the Java program or the .NET program and verify the syntax of that program and run that program. So what we need, let's say if you want to run the Java program in our local system, we need to install the Java software. When you install Java software, it creates the Java runtime environment and also Java virtual machine, which can compile the code and verify whether the code is correct or not. So for Salesforce, no need to install anything. Directly, once we log into the Salesforce, right? It's a cloud-based application. once we go to website and log into Salesforce, directly in the server, by default, Salesforce installed this platform, what we need to run our programs. Okay, so all we need to do, log into Salesforce and do the development and execute. Okay, so like that. Okay, so just since you hear about this terminology, I'm just explain. This is the platform we use. So on this platform, which kind of development we can do, right? So this sports.com platform. So what exactly we can develop? Okay, so we have when you deal with any application, there are three layers of the application. For example, this is one of the website, right? So in this website, we are seeing this page, right? On this page, if I click on, let's say I'm clicking on this one, right? So something is executing in the background, and we are seeing some other screen. If I save, right? Maybe we also see errors if I'm not saving the mandatory fields. So all these things, what happened? Right? This is the UI. Any user, they open the website and try to access these web pages. When we click on save, what will happen in background? It will verify, right? All these form values we entered are not. Some business logic will execute, right? So here in this, whatever we see in the web page, that we call as UI. UI means user interface, right? So when we try to interact from the UI, in the background, some business logic will execute, right? So from the UI based on the user, whatever they do, whatever they click, okay? So business logic will execute, right? So after executing that logic, let's say if you populate everything properly and save, this information will be saved into database, right? Database means it is a place where many tables will be maintained. Whatever we populate here, this information will store in one of the table. So maybe in this case, maybe user table in the database. Okay, so this connected to the database, right? To hold all this information, right? The UI or business logic or database data, to hold all this information, we need a computer. We need a, maybe we need a server, right? So computer means only for personal purpose. If if the business, right, business, they need to have huge data, right? So every time, right, anytime if we visit the website, this information should be accessible. So in those cases, the information we keep in the server. Server means it will be almost 24/7, it will be up and running, no one will shut down, right? Maybe weekly or monthly maintenance. Sometimes we see for 30 minutes the application won't work, right? Only for maintenance time they'll try to restart. Otherwise, mostly it will be available, right? All these things are there, right? Will be maintained in one of the Salesforce server. Okay, so now nothing as part of the post.com platform, we need to work on all these layers. We need to do the UI development, we need to write the business logic, we also need to write the database comments, but not too much complex. Okay, the Salesforce platform is simplified to do many things easily. Okay, so as part of the UI, so what exactly we do, right? UI means the famous UI development is we can do using HTML, right? And also to style the website, right? So where the element should be displayed and right, how, which color it should display. So we use CSS, cascading style sheet, right? And also JavaScript, right? So within the browser to do some validations, we also write the JavaScript. All these things also will work. Okay, but directly we don't develop HTML and all these things. Okay, Salesforce is offering some of the frameworks for the UI development. So obviously these things we use inside whatever the framework Salesforce offer. Okay, so as part of the Salesforce platform, the possibility to do the UI development is using Visual Force. Visual Force is one of the markup language similar to HTML, right? Instead of HTML, we use some different tags which are supported, which are provided by Salesforce to develop some of the web pages. When we start understanding about that, we will know how exactly it will work. Okay, so for now, you need to understand Visual Force is a framework to do the UI development, similar to HTML, right? And also nowadays to match with the modern applications, right? Nowadays, day by day, the UI, the way the websites displays, once the website is developed, it should be accessible from all devices, desktop, phone, iPad, from any device. If you try to see, automatically it should adjust and display the website in a proper way, right? So to consider that, Salesforce, they also came up with ARA. ARA we also call as lightning components. Okay, in 2014, Salesforce, right? So they came up with this framework, ARA framework. We also say lightning component framework. Okay, and also to match with even modern concepts, Salesforce introduced LWC. LWC means Lightning Web Components. They introduced this in 2019. Okay, so either we use Visual Force or ARA, and LWC is the latest for the UI development. While developing all these things, we also use this HTML, CSS, and the JavaScript. We should know some basics. Based on the need, I'll explain. Okay, that's what we do for UI development. For the business logic, right? In the background, based on button we click or based on what we do on the UI, it executes some logic in the background, right? So for that, right, business logic, people ask, do we need to already know about Java or C++ or some of the languages? Okay, I can say no need to know anything. I'm going to explain from very basics. Even though you don't know Java or .NET or any other programming language, for now it is fine. Okay, I'm starting from basics. I'm going to assume that you don't know anything. We start from what is a program and discuss. Okay, so only on Salesforce, only the business logic, the programming language what we use is Apex. Okay, not Java, not .NET, not anything else. Okay, we use a programming language called Apex. This is what we use. Okay, so if you think that we use Java or something, just understand we don't use Java. Okay, why people compare this Apex language with the Java or .NET? It also follows the OOPS concepts, object-oriented programming concepts. If you take C++ or Java or .NET, all those are based on the object-oriented programming concepts. So Apex also based on the object-oriented programming concepts, which looks like the programs looks similar to Java or .NET programs. That's why people try to compare with Java. Okay. So anyway, we are going to understand this from very basics. Okay. And also for database, we need to use some of the commands. Okay. We have SOQL, SSL, and DML. SOQL means Salesforce Object Query Language, Salesforce Object Search Language, data manipulation language. So all these things we use to either retrieve the data from the database or to alter the data in the database. Okay, so no need to know too much in-depth queries. Okay, with 1 hour discussion, right? 1 or 2 hours discussion, you will be understanding how we use SOQL or SOSL or DML, all these things. Okay, it's pretty easy. Okay, just understand about that. Okay, so now this is what the scope. Okay, all these things we discuss, and beyond this, people ask, do we discuss about the integration? Okay, so there is a concept called integration. This also we cover as part of the development. Yeah, this is also as part of the Apex, the business logic, right? So there are two famous ways of doing the integration, using SOAP API, using REST API. Both the things we discuss as part of this training. Okay. So what is that integration? All those things, when we start the topic in detail, we'll understand and proceed further. Okay, at high level, right? These are the things which we are going to discuss as part of this training. At the end, we also deal with the deployment. Okay, how we deploy from one sandbox to other sandbox to production, all those things. At high level, these are the things which we are going to discuss. Internally, when you take Apex, there are many concepts. When you take Visual Force, there are many concepts. So like that we have. Okay. And also, due to the duration of the training, in depth we understand about this Apex and all these things. And up to Visual Force, in depth we understand. For ARA and LWC, up to, right, so 30% of what we need to know, right? If you want in depth, again, ARA is taking 1 month and LWC is taking 1 month, right? So that is like a separate batch. Okay. For now, based on what I see, people cannot digest. Again, if I explain ARA and LWC along with this development, okay, so they are feeling a lot of complex. So that's why first you need to complete this development. And anyway, as part of the development, we discuss up to 30% of the ARA and LWC syllabus. First, you need to digest and practice all these things. And keep that in-depth learning of ARA and LWC separately. Once we have confidence with what we discussed in the development, the next level is knowing the in-depth concepts of the ARA and LWC. Okay, so that's the thing. Okay, so now let's start with one of this topic in detail. Okay, first we need to, for all these things, the Apex programming language is the main thing, which is never changed when Salesforce introduced, right? That is the bridge between the database and the UI, what we deal. Even in some cases, even without UI, we need to execute some programs. There can be, we can schedule sometimes weekly once, we need to execute some logic, right? If we want to do the integration, we write the Apex, right? So even without UI also, we do many things using the Apex. That's the main thing first we should know. First, now here we are understanding about the Apex programming language, right? So Apex language, programming language. Okay. So just before starting this, right? I am assuming that you don't know anything about what is a program and how it works. Okay. So before we start understanding about a program, this Apex language, the first point when we start learning about the programming language, this is case insensitive, right? It is case insensitive, meaning, for example, we have something like this, right? If I try to refer that using like this, using like this, it will think that, okay, it is, everything is same. But in some programming languages, if there is a change in the case, system treat that it is different. Yeah, but Apex is not like that. Especially some of you, if you are from Java or .NET, those are case sensitive, right? Java is case sensitive, right? Java is case sensitive, but Apex is case insensitive. Okay, so just understand that point. Now what is a program, right? So when we say program, what the program will do? So why we write the program? Okay, so on day to day, whatever mostly we use, we rely on the automated logic, the programs. So for example, you are using, let's say you are using calculator, right? We enter some numbers plus and equal to, we see the result, right? Internally, some logic, some program logic will execute based on the data, whatever we supply. So program is nothing but to automate some of the real world things we use programming, right? So you can also do addition manually, but it might take time. It might not be accurate. But if you program it, right? So if you add many numbers together, it is very, very faster for the calculation, and also it is accurate, right? So due to those reasons, many things, right? Let's say we are going to bank, right? Olden days, if you go to bank, you need to give the amount to the bank employee. They will count it and they will deposit into the account, right? So nowadays, we go to the ATM and input the amount. It will count, it will update. So all those are internally some logic will execute, right? Some logic will execute. It will update our balance after we deposit. When you withdraw, automatically the money will be debited from the bank account. So internally, the programs will execute. Program is nothing but it takes some data as input, and by taking our data, it will apply some calculation and give the result. For example, you are depositing the money. It takes that amount, how much you are depositing, that as input, and do the calculation. After doing that, it will return the balance, how much balance we have. In the same way, withdraw all those kind of things, right? So now when we say program, technically, so how we need to understand, right? So let me open one of the file and show you. So if you see this one, right? So let's compare the program with one of the natural language. Okay. So for example, English is one of the language, right? We use English language to communicate with others, right? So when you, let's say we are writing one of the paragraph in the English language, right? So when you write one of the paragraph in the English language, so how we form the paragraph? Multiple sentences. We write multiple sentences and combine those sentences and form a paragraph, right? So here program is like one paragraph, right? We write multiple paragraphs like that. We also write multiple programs. Okay, so if you assume that program is like a paragraph, so here paragraph will be formed with multiple sentences. So here program is also like a paragraph, but it will be, instead of sentences, we call as statements, right? Paragraph, multiple sentences separated. Each sentence we stop with a full stop, and again write one more sentence, and one paragraph will form. Here, instead of sentence, we call as statement, right? We write multiple statements. Each statement ends with semicolon. Maybe here in English, we stop the sentence with full stop. Here in programming, we stop the one of the sentence with the semicolon. Technically, we call that one as a statement. Multiple statements will become a program. Okay. And also when you write the paragraph, if you don't write the sentences in a proper order, the paragraph won't give the meaning, right? So if you don't if you really don't keep your sentences in a proper order, the paragraph won't give any meaning. In the same way, whatever the statements we write should be in a proper order. Otherwise, the program also cannot give the proper meaning. Okay, so that the order whatever we maintain, that we call as flow. Right? The sentences, first which sentence should execute, after that which sentence should execute. That flow, right? That technically we call as a flow. The order, multiple sentences in a proper order will form a program. Now, also when you take a sentence, how we form the sentence? We need to follow the grammar, right? Simply, if you write something without following the grammar, it won't give the meaning. We have to follow the grammar, right? So when you deal with the sentence, we form the sentence with multiple words, right? Multiple words. By following the grammar, we can form the sentence. Here, statement, right? We call as statement. Here, instead of words, here we call as tokens. Instead of calling as a word, we call as token, right? Multiple tokens by following the syntax instead of grammar, right? Here we call as grammar in English. Here, technically, in the programming languages, we call as syntax. It's like a grammar, right? Multiple tokens by following the syntax will form a statement, right? So instead of word, here we call as token. And also when you say word, there can be multiple types of words: noun, pronoun, adjective, verb. There are many things, right? In the same way, here in programming language, token can be a keyword or identifier, operator, literal, like that. So when we call keyword, in English also, when we call it is a verb, when we call it is a noun, right? We learn, right, while learning English language. In the same way, everything, each and every word in a program, what we see, technically we call as token. But the token, what we call that, is it a keyword or is it an identifier? Slowly we are going to understand that now. Okay, with our next topics, slowly we are going to understand what is keyword, what is identifier, all these things. Okay, so if you are from non-technical background, this will be useful to compare. So how technically we call a program. Okay, now once you know this, okay, now you know program is nothing but having set of statements in a proper order. Okay, so we give some input, data as the input. By taking that data as input, all those statements will execute. Maybe adding those numbers, subtracting, multiplying, applying some calculations, and finally it gives some result. That's the purpose of the program. So slowly let's understand first statements, right? So what are the different types of statements? First we understand each and every statements, right? When we learn English language, first we learn about some of the words, and first we try to form the sentences, small sentences. Later we start working for paragraphs and all those bigger things. Here also, first we understand, so what are the types of statements? And after that, we combine everything and form a program. So if you say a sentence in English also we have different types of sentences. Let's say sometimes we combine multiple sentences with and. Sometimes we say if, right? Maybe because, or, right? So we say compound sentences, right? Sometimes we combine multiple sentences using some of the words, right? So we call as compound sentences, like that. So like that, here also we have different types of statements. First we understand what are the different types of statements. After that we combine all those things into one of the program and understand how the program will work. Okay, now what are the types of statements. So this is for our understanding. So we are classifying the different statements into types and understand each type so that we combine everything and form a program. Okay. So now the topic, types of statements, right? Types of Apex programming statements, right? So I'm just giving the name like this. What are the types of statements we have? I'm just first list out all the types and slowly we understand. So what is the type and how it works? Okay. So first type, memory statements. Okay. So what is that? I'll explain. Okay. Memory statements is one type. The next one is arithmetic or logical statements, right? Logical. These are one of the type. Okay. And also we have conditional statements. Okay. And also I'll explain each and every type how it works. Okay. The next one, controlling or looping statements. Okay. The other thing, input or output statements. Okay. These are the different types of statements. If we know how these will work, we can start writing a program and understand how it works. Okay. Now first one, memory statements. So what is the memory? What is the meaning of the memory? First we need to know about that. Okay. So if you are from non-technical background, so maybe you might be using a computer, right? Laptop or maybe home computer. Let's say laptop. Let's say you are using a laptop. So in general, if you say you have a laptop, people ask what is the laptop configuration, right? Main thing what we say, my laptop is having 1 terabyte memory, right? 1 terabyte memory, maybe 6 GB RAM, like that, right? Processor, all those things. So memory means, so maybe this is my hard drive, right? So here I have all these folders and I have videos and images, PDFs, many things. To hold all these things, memory is the hardware where all this information will store. Okay. So, but when we deal with the programming, so here database, right? So whatever we develop and everything, here this server is like a memory place, the hardware, right? To store all our data and information, the memory will be there in server. Okay. So here all these things, whatever we develop, everything store in this server. That is the hardware. So here server is equivalent to the memory, right? In server, how we have hard drive 1 terabyte, that place will be there in the server. Okay. But why we use RAM, right? So if you see why we use the RAM, so RAM purpose, right? People say 6 GB RAM, 8 GB RAM. Difference between the memory and the RAM. In memory, whatever the files you save, even though you shut down your computer and again you open your computer, all these files will be there in the hard drive. Anytime you can log in and I can access. But RAM, right? The 6 GB RAM or whatever we have, that is a runtime memory. Okay. So that means now if you see in my system, I opened the Chrome browser, right? I also opened the GoToMeeting software. I also opened one of the tool called Visual Studio Code, right? Many applications I am opening to run all these applications, right? To run all these applications, the Chrome browser, GoToMeeting, or this Visual Studio Code, whatever applications we open, all these things occupy some memory at runtime. Runtime, not permanently, right? If you close this, it will stop occupying the memory. If you open one more new application, again it will start occupying the memory from the RAM. So like that, here, so like that when we say RAM, I mean here memory, this is not like a permanent memory. At the time of executing the program, right? At the time of executing the program, whatever the data we give as input or whatever the calculated result is there for output, all that data needs some space in the memory. At runtime, runtime means when the program is executing. At the time of executing the program, whatever the memory needed, so that is the thing we allocate using the memory statement. It is not permanent, right? So whatever we store, it will store only at the time of running the program. Once the program running stops, again it will release that memory. So like our RAM, okay? So now, so how much memory we need to allocate? So actually when we deal with the data, there are different types of data, okay? So which type of data needs how much memory, okay? So all those things we deal using the memory statements, okay? So blindly allocating the same memory for data whatever we deal, we need to allocate different memory for different types of data. For example, on day to day, we deal with a number, we deal with a text, we deal with true or false, right? So all these things, it's not that if you allocate the same memory for all those things, memory will be wasted. Okay, to utilize the memory in a proper way, to make the system understand what type of data we are dealing, so that system is allocating only that much data. Before we write the memory statement, we need to know about data types, right? So what are the types of data we deal while writing the program? Once we know that, then we can start writing the memory statement by deciding which type of data we are dealing. Okay, so most of the programming languages, Java, .NET or C++, you see this concept data types. Okay, but here whatever I'm listing, these are related to Apex programming language. In Apex programming language, how they classified the data, right? So which type of data for which type we need to mention, so that only that much memory will be allocated by the system. Okay, so here first I'm going to list out the types of data types. Later we'll see each and everything with some example. Okay, the first data type is blob. Okay, blob means binary large object. So that is blob, binary large object. Okay, so the purpose of this data type is, if you want to store any file, right? So let's say sometimes we need to attach some file. The file can be Excel or image or notepad or any type, PDF or anything. So if you want to hold the files information into the temporary memory, that time we use this blob. The full form is binary large object to store the files information. File can be a PDF or image or anything. Okay. The next type, Boolean. Boolean is one of the data type. Boolean means true or false. In some situations, we need only true or false, right? So just like that, right? So in those situations we use. In general, true means like this, false means like this. It accepts only those two values. That is Boolean. The next one, date. Date is one of the data type. Okay. So if you see date, there are different date formats. Okay. So slowly we'll understand about those formats. Okay. Maybe in India, the way how we deal with the date, maybe in US and other countries how they deal might be different. Okay, so let's say mostly by default US, they deal like this: first month, and after that date, and after that year. They follow like this. Maybe in India we follow first date DD, YY. It's all based on the country and some of the factors. Okay, so these kind of date formats we can store by using the date data type. Okay, and also we have date time. Along with the date, it also holds the time. Okay, slowly going forward, I'll explain how the time format looks and all those things. Okay, the next one is decimal. Decimal is one of the data type. So decimal means it is a number, right? Number with the decimal digits. If you have questions, you can ask. Okay, so if you don't have questions, please stay on mute. Okay, so number means on day to day, let's say if you deal with the currency, right? Most of the times we deal with the decimal. Let's say $5.2, right? So for them, that point and 5.25, those decimals are important for the business. Okay, so to deal with those kind of things, right? So we deal with the decimal. Okay, so let's say weight, exact weight they want to know. Let's say 67.34, right? So some on day to day few things we need decimals. Let's say gold weight, they also want 0.000 also, right? Something like this. So in those kind of situations, we deal with this type. Okay, it is a number with the decimal digits. Now, so we have one more type called double. Okay, so very rare to use this one. In some situations, if it is a very huge number, right? So we have maybe millions, billions, trillion, even beyond that. Okay, so very bigger number. If you deal with the mathematics, you see exponential, right? People give so 5, if it is a bigger number, 5 exponential something, right? So to deal with such kind of bigger numbers, we use this double. Okay, it's almost very rare to use this. Okay, in case if there is a need, so that's the purpose of the data type. Okay, the next one is ID. ID is one of the data type. Okay, for this already, so if you know the administration basics, we discussed about record ID, one of the concept, right? In one of the standard object or custom object, whenever we create the record, system generate the unique record ID. The record ID can be either 15 digit or 18 digit, right? This ID data type hold either 15 digit or 18 digit ID. That's the purpose of the ID data type. The next one is integer, is one of the data type. Okay, so integer means again it is a number, but this does not need decimals. For example, while counting, right, we count as 1 2 3 4. We don't say 1.1 1.2, right? So count quantity we say 100 or 200 or like that, right? So to deal with those kind of situations, we need a rounded number. We don't want decimal digits, right? We want only 100 or 5 or 4 or whatever. To deal with such kind of scenarios, we deal with the integer data type. It won't allow to give the decimal digits. Okay, so that's about the integer type. In the same way, we have here long, one of the data type. So similar to, right? So maybe this is like this double is like bigger decimal, right? Very big decimal value. In the same way, to hold the huge integer value, right? We use this long, right? Bigger integer, very huge integer value to hold. So that time we use this long data type. Okay, and Along with this object, there is one of the data type called object. Okay, in some situations, really we don't know what data we are going to deal. We don't know what is the. There will be some situations. Okay, it might be a date, or it might be a boolean, or it might be an integer. We don't know. Sometimes, if you want to maintain the information in a generic way, right, which can accept any type of data, that time we deal with the object. So when we define object, in the object memory, you can store date value, you can store decimal value, ID, integer, anything. It's like that. It's a generic type. Okay. The next one, string. String is one of the data type. It is a text starting with single character, right? To, right? The bigger sentence, whatever we type. So even multiple sentences, if you are typing, so all we need to do, we need to enclose in the single quotes, starting with single character, multiple sentences, bigger text to hold. We use string type. Only the rule is we need to write our text, whatever you type, inside the single quote, not the double quote. Okay, inside the single quotation, we need to write our text, whatever you want to maintain. Okay, so maybe in Java and all, I think it is different. Okay, so the next thing, the time, one of the data type. Okay, it holds the time, maybe hours, minutes, seconds, even milliseconds also it can hold. That's the time data type. Okay, so these are the data types available when we deal with the Apex programming language. Using these data types, we allocate the memory. We mentioned while allocating the memory, which type of memory you want to allocate. Right? We mention the type and give the name for the memory so that only system will allocate that much memory. Okay. So now with this information about the data types, we can write one of the memory statement. Okay, let me write the memory statement and show you how we write. Okay, we are writing our first statement, which is a memory statement. Okay, the syntax is like a grammar in English, right? The syntax is the data type. Let's say what exactly want to store. Let's say we are booking the movie ticket, right? So how many tickets you want? 3 or 4 or 5, right? To hold that, right? Number of tickets. So which type is suitable? It's a number, right? Number of tickets is a number, 1, 2, 3. So for numbers, we have this type and we have this type. Which is suitable, right? Number of movie tickets, we cannot say 1.5, right? 1 or 2 or 3. So we have to consider using integer. That's the suitable thing, right? Integer. We need integer type. It should not allow any decimals, nothing. 1 or 2 or 3 or 5 or 10. Okay, so this is the type. And to recognize this, right? To recognize this again and again. So we need to give the name for the memory, right? So let's say I'll say number of tickets. And you know, right? The statement ends with semicolon. Maybe in English, we stop the sentence with full stop. Here we stop the statement with semicolon. Okay? This is one of the statement, right? We wrote our first statement. This is how we write the statement. So integer is the type. With the type, to recognize that, to remember that memory, right? Whatever system allocate, we are giving that name for the memory as like this number of tickets, and semicolon is the ending of the statement. Okay, so from day one, we can execute and see, is there any problem with the syntax. Nowadays, when you type any sentence in the WordPad or some of the, let's say you are composing email, if you are not following the grammar, it give the suggestion, right? It give the suggestion and we need to correct if there is a spelling mistake on all those things here. So that process we call as compilation. We compile. Compile means we are verifying whatever we are writing, that code, is it following as per the syntax of the program, like that. Okay. So now, just to show you whether this is correct or not. Okay. So maybe if some of you, if you are new to Salesforce, if you did not attend admin training, to create the free account, you need to go to one of the website called developer.salesforce.com. Here you can click on sign up, right? You can click on sign up and you can fill the form and so set the password by checking your email. Okay, once you check, next time to log in, you need to go to a website called login.salesforce.com, enter your username and password. Okay, in case if you don't know. Okay, so already we have account for this class. Already I logged into this account like that. Now once we log into Salesforce, as a developer, to do some coding and understand how the program is working, once you log in, click on this gear icon, click on developer console. Okay, in general, if you click on developer console, it will open in a new tab, new Chrome tab. Okay, maybe if you don't want to open in a new Chrome tab, click on this gear icon. I want to open this in the one of the tab of the Chrome browser, not in a new window. So you can hold control and click on this developer console. Okay, so that is open. Any questions? If you don't have any questions, please stay on mute. I think someone is not on mute. Okay, so please try to stay on mute. Okay, so now this is a tool. Okay, as a developer, we use this tool to do many things. Okay, for now, to execute the Apex statements, whatever we are writing, okay, no need to follow any program structure. Okay, for now, to simply as a developer to write some statements and verify how it is working, we use this tool here. After opening the developer console, you need to click on debug and choose open execute anonymous window. Here we can write our code and check the syntax is correct or not, or how it is working, all those things. Okay, so now this one, right, whatever I am typing, is it correct or not, right? Integer is a data type. We need to give the space, and this is a name for the memory. Okay, this is the ending of the statement. Let's say if I am not ending, let's say I'm not as per the syntax, the statement should end with semicolon. If you don't give, it is right, it will compile, it is verifying the syntax and it is throwing error, right? Unexpected token, right? Everything is a token in the program, right? So unexpected token, this one it is saying. The problem here is we are missing this statement should end with the semicolon. Okay, so once you give that and execute, now if you see, we did not see any error. When there is no error, if you see system generate a log, when our program executed, it gives details how it executed, where it started, how much memory it allocated, all those details, right? So this is the log. As a developer, we open the log and understand sometimes how it is working, right? When it started, if you see, internally all these bytes of memory it allocated, right? And so here we can see the log. Okay, so slowly we'll understand how we see the log and how we need to understand these things. Okay, so for now, log also will be there. System will generate the log. So this is a valid one, right? This is a valid syntax. Okay, and also when we start newly, how people give, like this, right? So maybe when we study BTech, MTech, when we start writing the program, we give X, Y, Z, ABC, like that, right? So when you say you have some experience, we should not really define like that, okay? So one of the programming standard, okay, so we technically call as indentation. Indentation means the programming standards. The experienced developers, they follow some standards while writing the program. Those standards are nothing but the indentation. So even though you don't follow, the code will execute. But if someone sees, they see, so who developed, and they think that some inexperienced person developed the code. Okay, so maybe technically it will work, but if someone sees, they feel bad by seeing this. Somehow they think that some inexperienced person developed. Okay, the rule is whenever we define the memory, right? So after defining the data type, whatever the name we give for the memory, this should be the meaningful name. Okay, by seeing this, people can understand what we are storing, right? If you see here, I'm giving number of tickets, right? So maybe I'm not typing full like this, right? But simply like this, by seeing, developers can understand. Okay, I think number of tickets, that count they are storing. Okay, it should be meaningful. Okay, try to follow these standards. Okay. Now let me take one more thing. So let's say it is also asking the names, right? Let's say if you choose 2 tickets, you need to give the names, right? So when you want to store the name, let's say one of the person name we need to store, who is booking the ticket. So what type we need to choose? Name is a text, right? So out of these types, if you see for text, we have this one. We need to choose string, right? String space, right? Name, right? Or maybe they want to capture the first name and last name both, right? First name. One more thing to capture last name. Yeah, and also when we define the memory, if you are allocating the memory of the same type, same data type, we can also give comma and give like this, right? String with the string type, how many memory locations you want, how many memory you want to allocate. I want to store first name and last name. 2 memories it will allocate. Okay, we can store first name, we can store last name, so like that. Okay, so this is about the memory statement, how we define. Okay, and also while defining, we can also give some default value. For example, I'm giving 1, right? I can give, while defining the memory, we can also assign the value, how much value you want to store. If you don't assign, by default, whatever the memory holds, that we call as null. Okay, null means nothing is there. We allocated the memory, but we did not store anything. That time, what memory holds is null. Okay, so like that. Okay, so based on these things, let's say maybe first name also we are giving some names. Okay, so let me give some names here. Let's say Karan. Maybe for this I am not giving. We can also do like this. Okay, now maybe here I am saying it is the name given to the memory, right? But technically we cannot say like that. Yeah.
Thing after that first name, you don't need to keep in semicolons, means inside the semicolon. So means
yeah, because I'm not ending this statement. Okay, within the same statement, I'm allocating multiple multiple, right? I'm allocating multiple memory locations. Okay.
Not semicolon, single quotes means.
Single quote. This is a string, right? This value I am assigning to first name. For last name, I am not assigning anything. Right? This last name is not the value. This is a name given to the memory. In case if you want to assign some value here, you can also assign like this. Okay. If you don't want, don't assign. It's like that. Okay. So, and also to verify syntax whether this is correct or not, as per what I am explaining here, you can paste here and execute. If you are not seeing any error, it will execute. If there is any error, it will stop and show error. Okay. As per the syntax, this is correct. Now here we need to know what we call all these things technically. If you go back and see here, I'm saying in a program, everything whatever we see is a token. Each and every word what we see is a token. But token can be a keyword or identifier or operator, literal, like that, right? Now here in these statements, everything is a token. But what we call this token specially, right? Do we need to call that one as a keyword or identifier? What we have to say? Okay, so the thing is, one of the thing, the token which is provided by system, which we cannot change the meaning, we call as a keyword. So here integer, who is providing that as part of the Apex programming, they are saying that to define the statement. So you have to mention the type, one of this type, only these types. You cannot give something like this. Maybe in other programming languages, you see, if you give like this, it will throw error. In Apex, it is not there, right? So whatever the Apex programming they
What
provide
about,
as, yeah,
excuse me, number of tickets? Is it not allowing any spaces in between of the variable?
yeah, yes, we should not give anything. That point I'll explain. Okay.
Okay.
So how we really need to define that, I'll explain. So maybe you are saying this as a variable, but other people don't know, right? If they don't know the programming language, I'll explain. I'll reveal all these things. Okay. For now, all these things are tokens, and few tokens which system provide and which we cannot change the meaning. For example, integer means always we can only store the integer values. It's not possible to store some text inside this, right? So here integer, string, maybe if you don't assign anything, right? So I'm saying that it will store null, right? So let's say string, right? So is adult, right? True or false we give, right? I'm not giving anything. If you don't give anything, this is like a Boolean, right? True or false means we define Boolean, but I did not assign any value. If you don't assign any value, by default system holds null. Null means that is also a token which is provided by system. If something you allocate memory but don't store anything, it by default maintain null. So all those things we call as keywords. Okay, so keywords are nothing but the tokens which are provided by the system, integer, right, string. So all those data types on top, whatever we have, all those are the keywords, right? So Boolean. So if you don't assign anything, by default it is holding null. That null also we call as a keyword. Nothing is there. That's the meaning. Okay. So and here in this program, right, number of tickets, right? As a developer, I gave this name, right? Maybe some other developers might give something else. They might give like this. This name is in the developer hands. Why we are giving this name? To identify the memory what we are allocating. So these things we call as identifiers, right? Identifier means as a developer to remember few things, we are giving some name. This name is in the developer hands, right? So first name, some other developer might give like this, right? It's all developer who is developing. They'll decide these names. So these things we call as identifier, right? For the identification purpose. So we are defining. So in the above program, this number of tickets, right? Maybe first name, last name, right? So all these things are the identifiers. Okay, but when we say identifier on day-to-day, people cannot understand. It's not the day-to-day usage to call these things as identifier. Okay, so we also call these identifiers as data members. Okay, that is also technical term. Data member on day-to-day we don't use this. We say identifier. Also, when you read some technical books, you see as data member. That is also the name given to the memory. Also, we call as variable. This is the one most of the times people refer, right? When we define the data type and whatever the name we give to the memory, technically that is an identifier. We also call as data member, but day-to-day people how they call variable. Variable means most of the people will understand. Now going forward, whenever I define a data type and whatever the name I give to the memory, that we call as variable. Going forward, I will say variable. You have to understand. Yeah.
Yeah, in this string, actually, whatever we place in after the string should be inside the semicolon, like inside the quotes, single quotes. I mean to say first name, last name, everything should be having another single quote or not necessary.
No, so the single quote is for the string, right? So now here I am giving a number, right? While assigning the number, we only give the number, right? We don't give any single quotes. Directly number we give. But whenever you are giving a text, I'm assigning this text value as input to this memory. Always the text value should be in the single quote. Okay. This is the name of the memory, the variable. These things we don't keep in single quote, right? This is the memory. So to identify this type, whatever it is allocating, we are giving. This text value, whatever you are decided to assign, we need to keep in the single quote. Okay. Let's say this is a Boolean. If I want to assign, either we give true or false. This we don't keep in the single quote. Okay. So whatever the data we deal, based on the data, we have to understand as per the syntax, right? What Apex language is saying. When you give a number, directly you can give a number, right? Boolean, directly you can give Boolean. But when we try to deal with the string, that should be enclosed in the single quote. Those are the rules. Okay. So yeah, here we know that now these things we call as variables, right? So still we need to continue many things. I think 2 hours means people cannot digest. So let's take 10 minutes break, and after 10 minutes we'll continue and understand the next set of things. Okay. So I'll pause the recording, and after 10 minutes, right? Now the time is 8:20 p.m. 8:10, and we again resume, right? After 10 minutes and continue. Okay. So let's take some break and.
This conference will now be recorded.
Okay. So right, so far here whatever the memory statements we define. So technically all these are the tokens. Each and everything whatever we see here is a token. So out of all these things, integer, string, boolean, so all these data types, whatever system provided tokens are there, Those things we call as keywords. And for our identification purpose as a developer, whatever the names we give for the memory, those things we call as identifiers or data members or the variables. Okay. And also on the above program, this is a string, right? If you see here, we have strings also. Okay? In the above program, these are the strings. Okay, so especially we can say this is a string and this is also a string, right? And also literals means numbers. Okay, so let's say we call maybe 10 as a literal. And also here operators, right? Operator means equals, plus, minus, all those things we call as operators. In the above example, right? Only we are talking about above example. Equal to is a operator, assignment operator. It assigns the right hand side value into the left hand side, right? It's all just like mathematics, right? If you know basics of mathematics, same thing here. Okay, so now we know one of the type of statement, and also we know all these tokens technically what we call, which one we call as a keyword, which one we call as a identifier, all these things. Okay, now to understand further, okay, so we have a concept called technically indentation, right? Indentation means program standards, right? So even though you don't follow, the program will work, but people think some junior developer developed some code, something like that. Okay, so as part of the indentation, right? Whenever, if you see here, whenever I define the data type, it is starting with the capital letter and the remaining letters, small letters. You can also follow the same going forward. Whenever you define the data type, try to follow this standard. Starts with capital letter, all the remaining letters are small letters, right? So like that, follow that standard. Okay, and also when we deal with the name of the variable, don't try to give ABC XYZ like that. Give the meaningful name. If someone read that, they have to understand what we are going to store. If you see all these variable names, whatever I am giving, by seeing this, we can guess what we are going to store, right? Your name, variable name should be like that. And it should be the camel case, right? So camel case means should be in camel case, meaning starts with the small letter, and after that each and every word, right? In case there are multiple words while giving the variable, those we give as capital, right? This we call as camel case notation. Okay? So just follow those things. And also for sure we need to follow few things, right? So variable, so names, right? Names given to the variables. Okay, so these things we have to follow as per what we are discussing now. If you don't follow, it will throw error. Okay, for example, one of the thing, the first thing, variable should not have the space. Whenever we give the name of the variable, we should not give the space. If you give the space, syntax wise, that is wrong. It will throw error, right? Let's say this is one statement, right? If I give like this is a invalid name for a variable, right? So it will throw error. Okay, so variable name should not have space. Variable names should not have space. That is one point we should know. Okay, and also, right, what we need to do, variables can have numbers, but it should not start with the number, right? So variable can start with the number, right? But it should not start with number. Okay, so for example, we can do,
Excuse me, sir.
yeah,
I think it's a variable can have number but should not start with number, right?
yeah, correct.
The variable
Yes,
can have the number. Yeah,
yeah. So
thanks.
variable, yeah, variable can have a number, but it should not start with the number. Okay, that's the rule. So now here, right? So here integer. If I try to give like this is invalid, right? This becomes invalid. Okay, but this one is valid. So like that. Okay, you can also test. Okay, now here I'm giving like this, which is invalid, right? But we can give like this, right? Variable can have a number, but it should not start with the number. That's the rule. Okay, and also variables should not have special characters. Variables should not have the special characters except underscore. But variable should not start with underscore. Those are some of the rules. Okay, for example, integer underscore number one is invalid. Okay, it can have underscore, but it should not start with underscore. We can give like this. Okay, like this. Okay, these are some of the rules. Maybe same thing here. You can test it, right? Try to execute it will throw error. Okay, so it is taking some time. Yeah, in general, that will give the error, right? So, but if you give this, it will accept. So like that. Okay, so using other special characters not at all supported. Maybe dollar, right? Star, those kind of things you cannot use. Okay, and also variable name should not be the keyword. Variable name should not be the keyword. Okay, that means let's say integer. I cannot say decimal. I cannot give the name of the variable as decimal because decimal is a keyword. I cannot give this one as null. Null is a keyword. Okay, so you can see. So let's say I'm giving null. We cannot give the name of the variable as. So you can add something. That means that won't become a keyword. It might work. Okay. So it's like the invalid. Okay. So now if you give something like this, it is valid because that is not a exact keyword. Okay. So like that, these rules we have to follow. By following that, we have to define the variables. So mostly like this, we need to follow the standards. Okay. So now we understand about one of the type of statement, memory statement. Before we proceed with the other type, here so far whatever the data types I explained, these data types we call as primitive data types. Okay, so this concept little bit trying to explain, but if you don't understand, going forward you will understand. Okay, so now so far whatever data types we discussed, these data types we call as primitive data types. Okay, so what is this primitive data type? People say it is right called by value. So what is the meaning of this call by value? We have to understand. So whenever we, right, if you see, whenever we define the primitive data type and give the name, right, variable name. So what will happen? Whatever the memory system allocates, right, directly in that memory location, we can assign our value. Direct assignment. Wherever the memory is allocated into that place, directly our value will go and sit. So that is the call by value, right? Primitive data types, right? Whatever memory system allocates, whatever the value we assign, directly it will go and stay in that memory. So that is call by value. So we have non-primitive data types. Okay, maybe that one, if I explain, you will understand. So maybe I'll keep that part here. The non-primitive data types. Okay, this we call as call by reference. Meaning, let me first list out the non-primitive types and show you how exactly it will work. Okay, so what are the non-primitive types we have? Okay, so all the database tables. Okay, all the database tables we call as non-primitive data type. In Salesforce, we call as standard objects and the custom objects. Standard objects means the standard tables provided by Salesforce. Custom objects, as per the project requirement, what we create, those tables we call as custom objects. So all the standard or the custom objects we call as non-primitive data types. Examples, we have some of the standard objects account, right? We have contact, opportunity, case, there are many things. And as part of the admin training, I explained about we created some of the custom tables, course underscore C, applicant underscore C. All these are the custom tables which we created. All these things we can use as a data type. Okay, these are fall under non-primitive type. Before we define that, we also have one more type, S object. Okay, so maybe when we deal with the primitive data types, we discussed about object, right? Object is generic, which can hold any type of data, integer, date, decimal, anything. Here, this S object is generic to hold any type of table information. Table means here these objects, either standard object or custom object. So if you define, right, generic, right, this is generic to hold object information, right? So not like integer value, right? Generic to hold either standard or custom object information. It's not like we can assign integer value, right? Into this S object, you can store account or contact or course, such kind of information. So like that. That is one type. And going forward, we create some programs. Each program we call as a class, Apex class. Slowly we'll understand what is a class and all those things. Those things also we can define as a non-primitive data type. Yeah, so let's take one. Maybe let's see how we define a one of the variable using non-primitive data type. So let's maybe take account. Okay, account is one of the standard object for that. I want to create memory. So here the meaning, whenever when I try to define this one, it's like account is a table. Just understand, account is a table with many columns. In the table, we are going to store one row, right? Let's say we have Excel with 10 rows. You want to add one more row data. For one row data, we define one non-primitive variable like that. Here, when I can say account ACC1. This is the name given to the memory. Non-primitive type. For non-primitive type, directly assigning the value is not possible, right? So here I cannot directly assign the value like 10, like a string value like that I cannot assign. Non-primitive types will hold only the location. So here what we need to do, the location of the data, right? The row where we created, where is that row location in the table? That location only it can hold. It cannot hold the direct data. When you deal with the primitive type, whatever the memory system allocates, directly into that memory, our data will go and sit. But for non-primitive type, directly assigning the value is not possible. We need to assign where the data present, that location. Okay. In general, let's say there is no data available in the table. We are creating new one. So we allocate the memory location by using new operator, new record. Meaning is it is creating one empty row. It generates some memory location for one row in the table. And this returns the location where the memory, where is that memory for this row, that it returns. That memory location will be assigned to this. This will be holding the memory location of this new account row, whatever. It's like it is equivalent to we are creating one row in the table. Okay, so like this. Now this is like empty row, right? Maybe when you say empty row, let's say it is having 3 columns: account name, industry, rating. Assume that there are 3 columns on the table. To assign value for each and everything, how we need to give, right? This is the row, right? This is the location where this empty row is generated. In that location, in name, right? Let's say the name of the column is name. What you want, right? Let's say this is the name I'm giving. Okay. So what is the, let's say, industry? Okay, let's say something like this I'm giving, right? So one more column. What is the rating? Like this I'm giving, right? So like this, it's like this is one empty row. That row where it is allocated, that location it will assign to this. By using this location, in that location, in the column, we are assigning this value. So like this we deal. This type of dealing we call as non-primitive data type.
Actually, I have a small question.
Yeah.
That we'll call by reference means. So this is the Air Asia and travel and what is already in database. We'll just calling we'll take the reference means calling the database, right? Or we'll create our.
So maybe this is not in the database, okay? But we want to introduce one row in the table present in the database, okay? So since we are dealing with the new data which is not present in the database, this whatever here I'm highlighting, this creates one empty row which can fit into the table, okay? So this row temporarily system allocates some memory for this row. Where that memory allocated, that location will be assigned to this. For that I'm assigning value. Still this is not in the database. To push into database, to save this information into database, we need to use the database command. That slowly we understand in the later topic. Okay.
Sir, here account one dot name is the variable.
This is like a row, maybe to make you understand. So let me open one of the Excel. Okay. I'm just opening one of the Excel sheet. Okay, let's say this Excel is a database. Okay, so assume that this Excel is a database. Each and every sheet is like one table. Let's say account is one table, and the contact and many more tables. Okay, so just for our understanding, if you assume that this Excel is a database, in that if you see each and every sheet is like a one table. Yeah, let's say already this account table is having a column name, right, and maybe industry and the rating. Okay, maybe this table might have some data, or let's say it is not having any data, we are introducing new data. So when I say this, it allocate a memory space to hold this information, this empty, right, empty space to fill all these three column values in the row will be created by this. Because this I want to refer again and again, I'm storing into one of this variable, right? This holds the location where this system allocated. By using this reference, I'm detecting, right, this value. Here A2, in A2 location, this, it will point and we are assigning value, right? When I say like this, the meaning is we are filling this, right? So when I say like this, here it is going to fill this. It's like that, right? Each and every column value in the row, through here we are filling. Okay, let's say if you want to have one more row, one more memory location you can create, right? Let's say I can say account 2, right? Again, repeat the same process, dot name, dot do some other name, will generate one more. So it will add to that table temporarily. To really save permanently, we have to use the database command that we discuss in the upcoming topics, how we deal with the database.
My question is a bit different. Like in this case, account is the data type, non-primitive data type. Account 1 is the variable name. Equal to is the operator. And new account, what do we call it?
So new is a operator. Using this
Okay.
new operator, it is allocating the empty memory to hold
Okay.
all this information. Right? It's like empty memory is allocated.
Yes.
All we need to fill with that.
Yeah, and
Okay.
then what do we call the account 1 dot name? There should be, I mean, how we call it? What is it? Account 1 dot name, account 1 dot industry. What
So
we call it?
account
Yeah.
one will point to this,
Okay.
the row, the empty row, whatever this is generated, right?
Okay.
This is like in that empty row, account 1 empty row. In that name
Name.
is a column name, field.
Okay.
Right? Here in Salesforce, we call column as field. Name is
Okay.
a field. Industry is a field. Rating is a field.
Okay.
And you are filling that information, right? And also to understand in other way, it's like if you want to create a new account, right? In Salesforce, if you want to create the new account, what we do? Go to accounts, okay? So here, without clicking on new, is it possible to save the account? Right?
No.
So we need a form to fill. Here, when I say new, it is opening a form ready to input the value.
Correct.
So in like this statement,
Got it.
one empty form space is generated. In that name, what you want to assign, right? Let's say
Yes.
this one, right? Instead of typing like this in the background, right? Maybe once you fill everything and say what will happen in the background, since you open this new account, that is equivalent to this. You are filling this one. Internally, that value, whatever we fill, will be mapped like this. Whatever in industry or rating you are choosing, that will be right filled into like this. Right? In the back end, this is what will happen. Right?
Yeah.
In the UI, we give in a meaningful way like this. It's like that. Okay. So maybe this is too early to really understand 100% about this. Okay. So slightly, if you understand now, that is sufficient. Slowly, with other basics, you will understand. Okay. So any other questions on understanding this type now, non-primitive type?
If, for example, course underscore C is there,
Yeah.
course account ACC1 is equal to new course underscore C. Like, is it correct or?
Yeah. So let's say now you don't want to store in the account table. You want to store in the course one of the custom table. Right?
Yes.
What is the table? We give the table name, right? Which is a non-primitive data type. Okay. So here the variable name can be anything, whatever you feel. Let's say I'm giving the name as course one, or whatever you feel is equal
Okay.
to. If I give like this, and if I try to store right some value, let's say name. If I try to store value, what will happen? By default, this is null. Right? You define a variable. By default, it holds null. There is no empty row generated. For empty row, attaching the column is not possible. First of all, that is not there. You cannot attach there is no row you initiated. If you try to do this, you will see error at runtime. One of the runtime errors we call as exception, null pointer error, like that you will see. Okay. The thing is, first we need to generate the empty row like this. Okay, that means system allocates memory, sufficient memory to store one of the row in the course table. That's the meaning of this. So since this one we need to again and again refer. If you assign like this, it returns the location where this memory is allocated. Right? Using this reference, we are identifying the columns, the empty columns in that row, and populating the value. It's like that. Okay. So slowly with the other examples, you will understand clearly going forward. Okay? It is too early to even dig into this.
Renu, I have a small doubt.
Yeah.
How is this system is going to identify the new account or else a new course, whatever you have given the operator, the empty row? Like we are not at all giving that point. We are not mentioning that anywhere near the name or near the industry or rating. We are just mentioning the course one and the name. So where are we going to use this? How is the system going to identify that empty row?
Yeah, all these are in the present in the database, right? So when you try to compile the code, right? So if you see this, I'm typing in the notepad, right? Here I'm typing in the notepad. So when where we save ultimately this one in Salesforce, right? In Salesforce, right? In our account, it will store on the same server wherever our code we are maintaining. The database tables are also there, right? When you try to compile, means when you try to view here, right? Let me account and ACC. If I give something, whatever I feel, execute, it will check really is this data type available. It will check is there any primitive type? No. Is there any non-primitive? That means any standard object or custom object. It will check. If that is not there, it will throw error, right? So the standard object or custom object, whatever we refer, that should present in the database, right? When we compile, means when our code runs, when our code check for the syntax, that time it will go and check in the database. If that is there, okay, it will allow. If that is not there, it will throw error, right? So obviously it is checking. Okay. So like that. Okay.
Srini, I think I didn't ask about that, it seems. Can you come to the another screen, the black, the Visual 4 screen?
Yeah.
whatever we have, yeah. The new account, the new course underscore C. I'm mentioning about those things that
Which one?
account
Which line?
ACC2 equal to new account, right? Anything.
Yeah. Yes.
Account ACC equal to new account ACC1 equal to new account. So I'm asking like how the system is going, whatever data we are providing, how the system is going to identify that this is the right row to enter.
So that's what I am explaining. Okay. So when we this you define, right? First of all, it will check whether really this is there or not. Okay. Now into this, you want to store something. Okay. So let's say I want to generate one row into the account. I'll say new account. Okay. Now it will verify this is there in the database. Then now it will allow, since that is there in the database, if you give this, okay, since that is available in the database, due to this, it will allocate one empty row to enter information. Once this is there, which columns you want to populate? Here it's not that whatever you want you can give. In this account to table, in the database, what are the columns present? Only those names you can give. It's not that something you feel something you give, it will throw error. Okay, I'm giving test. I know this field is not there. Obviously, it will throw error, right? So here, consciously, you need to go to that in Salesforce to see that object. Right? Go to setup. Go to object manager. So this is the account object, right? So this is the name which we are referring in the code, whatever. Okay. So now here, whatever the fields are there, only these we can refer. If you give something, whatever you feel, it won't work, right? In my example, I'm saying name. There is a column with that name. So it will check when I give, is this column is there? Yes, okay. Assign this data, whatever we are giving into that column, right? So like that, each and every column, whatever we are mentioning here, it will verify whether it is there. Okay, syntax wise, it is correct. And also, this is a text field. To this, if you give number, it won't accept. And again, this will throw error. That field, that column, whatever is there, here it is a text. Text means in Apex, it is a string. Okay, so are you providing string value or not? If you give like this, number in the single quote is also a text. It will take. Now, if I execute, it will take. Like that, system will verify. It's not that randomly whatever you feel you can give. Okay. This verification will be done at the time of saving your code. Okay. So how exactly we keep all these statements in one program and save in a meaningful way? We are going to understand. We are in that process. Before we write the program, we are understanding line by line what is happening. Okay. So now, any other questions on this? Okay. So again, this 100% for now, if you did not understand, also fine. Okay. Just understand we have a non-primitive type. Slowly, once we complete these basics, you will get more clarity. Okay. So that's about this memory statements, right? How we define a memory statement and how we can assign the value. We understood some basic terminology, how we did. Okay. So now we are going to understand about the other type of statements, arithmetic and the logical statements. Okay. Here also there are different, for our understanding, we'll be understanding by classifying these things in different things. Okay. So one is assignment operator. Okay, we have operators, right? So equal to is one of the assignment operator. Okay, so what this assignment operator do? This is nothing but equal to. Okay, and after that, arithmetic operators. If you want to do some calculations, adding, subtraction, multiplying, dividing, if you want to do all those things, okay, we have to use the arithmetic operators. Okay, that will come to that. Now, assignment operator, what it will do, it's like a maths, right? In mathematics, what we do, same thing. Right hand side value will assign to left side, right? So when I say age of a person, right, integer age, how we assign 100? That means let's say 24. It will assign that value into this age, right? So you cannot give reverse. Okay, so left side always the memory location. Left side, whatever we give, that should be the memory, the variable what we define. Right side, it can be a value or it can be again some other memory location. From that it will pull the value. For example, I'm defining age 2. Okay, now what I am doing, age 2 is equal to yes. If I give like this, so age 2 is a primitive type, right? Memory will be allocated to store integer value. Instead of directly assigning the number, I'm again giving this variable name. What it will do in this memory, right? In this age memory, whatever the value present, that it will assign to left side. It's not that the memory will be moved here. Okay, so it's like that. So just we use the assignment operator to assign right hand side value to the left hand side. Okay, that's about that one. Okay, the next one, arithmetic operators, right? So we have many operators. Plus means addition, subtraction, right? In our keyboard icon is minus. Star means multiplication. Slash means division. There are many more. Slowly we'll understand. So here also, to understand in a better way, we can classify this into unary. People say unary operators, binary. Unary means deals with single value, right? Binary operators, right? Binary means 2. Ternary means 3, right? Operators. So when we call unary operator, let's understand. So let's say we have one variable integer. Let's say count is equal to 0. It is having default value as 0. Okay, sometimes in the programs, you see people give count plus. The meaning of this one is they are incrementing the count value by 1. Plus operator, what it will do, it will increment the value by 1. Okay, so after executing this statement, the count value will become 1, right? The internal meaning of this one is count is equal to count plus 1. Instead of writing like this, this is the shortcut. If you want to subtract, count minus means it is subtracting 1 from the whatever the count is there from that. So like that. Here, this is one value and one operator. So one value, one operator, we call as unary operator. Okay. So just understand about that one. Okay. In the same way, so we have the binary operators and other things. Okay. For that, we don't have time. Tomorrow, we'll deal with this. What is that binary operator and all these other things, so that we complete some basics, and further basics we'll also discuss tomorrow. Okay, So before ending, any questions, anyone?
Yeah, Srinu, regarding the default value for Boolean,
Yeah.
is that it will be null or it will be default, it will be false, right?
Mostly people think that for Boolean default is false. That is wrong. Okay. So by
Okay.
default it holds null to test, right? If you want to
Okay.
test, I'm saying after opening the developer console and here. So let me Boolean. Let's say I'm defining one variable is true. I'm not assigning anything. And also as a developer, when we try to execute our code and understand how it is working, every time when I execute, system is generating the log, right? In the log,
Yes.
if you want to print whatever you want, we use the system.debug. Okay, system.debug is to print some custom message as a developer in the system generated log. Okay, here I'm referring this, whatever the variable we have, that one I'm referring. I'm printing. The meaning of this one is print this variable value. That's the meaning. Okay, where we see that if you see down logs, after executing, it will generate the log. In the log, we can see, right? Execute. Every time when we execute our code, system generate the log. This is the log. Open. Okay. And in this log, whatever we printed, that will be there. But I want to see as a developer, whatever in a custom way I'm printing, only I want to see that. For that, here we have one checkbox debug only. So whatever we print using system.debug, only those things will be shown if you check this. Okay, I'm checking this one. If you see what you are seeing, null,
Null.
right?
Yes.
So I have defined, but I did not assign anything. By default, it is holding null, right?
Null.
Not false. Okay.
Okay.
Yeah. Any other questions?
Sir, in this training, are we covering all the topics of Platform Development 1 certification?
Yeah, see, this training is not for the certification purpose. Okay. So I don't follow whatever as part of the Platform Developer 1 syllabus is there, those things. Okay. This is for someone who want to work on Salesforce, who want to crack the interview, and after getting the job, we should be able to work. So for that purpose, okay. For the certification sake, there can be few other topics. Okay, for that, so obviously after taking this training, so maybe 70%, 80%, we can easily understand many things. Few additional topics, we have to follow the syllabus and trial head, and we have to give the exam. Okay.
Okay. Okay, sir.
Yeah.
So after this training, can we confidently go ahead and continue with the, I mean, Salesforce job, or do we need to do any other certifications or any other courses?
So you are in which country?
In India, sir.
Yeah. So in India, certifications are not required. Okay. So after completing this training, as soon as you practice whatever we discussed, you can just apply for the job and you can get the job. You can, after maybe getting the job, you can give the certification exam. Okay. But US and Canada, some countries, without certification, you cannot apply for the job. It's like that.
Okay. Can we get some job as a fresher, or does it need to be experience based?
So this training is, it works for the experienced people also. Okay, you can keep up to 4 to 5 years experience. Okay.
Perfect. Okay.
Yeah. Any other questions before ending? Yeah. So, and again, I did not understand. So, new account, we have not mentioned new account. So, what do you mean? If you can explain, I can try to answer. Where we did not mention new account. Yeah. Anyway, yeah, we'll continue tomorrow. Okay. So, this is the beginning, right? So, really, if you have some confusion, you can ask questions. Okay, once you understand the basics, the other things will be very easy. Okay, we'll continue tomorrow. Thank you.